The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm your host today, Rebecca Miller, along with our co-host and also the fabulous radio show producer, Kristina Liu. Today's guest is Julie Wexler, and Julie is going to be talking. Julie comes to us from the Bristol Assisted Living, and she's going to be talking to us today all about assisted living facilities, and we have a lot of questions, and not just about the Bristol, but kind of in general. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm so delighted to be here with both of you, Rebecca and Kristina. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Kristina always gets, the greatest guests. So, all within, North Hempstead, and great information for our seniors. So how about we just start talking about assisted living? So what exactly is assisted living?
Good question. So the assisted living communities are congregate settings where seniors come and live together and benefit from the opportunities for social engagement, for structure, for activities, and a little bit of health oversight if that's what you need. Assisted living as an industry has grown tremendously in the last 20 years. As you know, in the town of North Hempstead, in Nassau County, on Long Island, in New York State, even in our world, the 65 and over and the 85 and over demographic is the fastest growing demographic. And with that comes the need for more supportive housing. And assisted living is an opportunity for older adults who are struggling at home to find the services all in one place. We are licensed by the New York State Department of Health, so there are regulations and government oversight. Mm-hmm. And it really is like renting a hotel room or renting an apartment. And you have your own private space. You have your own private apartment. You can decorate it any way you like. But when you open the door to your apartment, everything is right there for you. Whether you're looking for gourmet style meals, or you're looking for somebody to help you manage your medications, or you're looking for a mahjong game or a poker game or a trip to the dollar store. Those are all the kinds of things that are really very accessible to you when you choose to live in an assisted living community.
So when do you kind of decide, hey, I should look at an assisted living, or should I stay in my home? What is I don't want to say the typical kind of senior that's looking, but basically who are the people that are looking at assisted living?
So obviously a personal choice, but I think it is a good way when you think of like our typical resident. So let me explain to you sort of three general kinds of residents that we have at our communities. So we have folks who are relatively independent. They might be of advanced age, maybe in, let's just say, argument's sake, in their 90s, right? Maybe they're still driving, but they're living in a big home that they purchased decades ago. Maybe the spouse has passed away, or their friends are aging as well. And so their friends are no longer driving, and it's just getting harder to manage the house. The social isolation is becoming more or increasingly difficult. And they're really just looking to be proactive, to move somewhere where they can age safely, peace of mind for their family, and really just live a fuller, more social life and not have to worry about where the next meal is going to be delivered from, or mowing the lawn, or getting the snow shoveled, or the next blackout, right? Everything is all right in one place, and there's people there to help you if you need it.
Sounds good to me.
You
had me at sign me up. I mean,
exactly. And then we have residents who move to our communities who might need a little bit of extra assistance. Maybe they've developed some physical frailties and getting in and out of the shower is unsafe. Or maybe they're on a number of medications and it's difficult for them to manage those medications. Or maybe they're now using a walker and their home that was built like in 1960 with the stairs and the narrow hallways and a non-handicapped accessible bathroom is really becoming impractical, right? The bedrooms are upstairs, right? A typical Long Island house. And so they choose to move to the Bristol where they can get care if they need it. Not an aide with you 24/7, because most of our seniors don't need that, but somebody to come up in the morning to help you get dressed. You have a little arthritis in your hands and you need help buttoning your buttons or getting your shoes on or getting in and out of the shower, or maybe you've developed some other physical frailties or incontinence and you need somebody there to help you with that. We have staff, our wellness office of well-trained, supervised, caring people who can come and help you with all those things. So we put together a care plan for each one of our residents, and it's very individualized. It might be a little bit of care. It might be a lot of care, or maybe it progresses over time. Maybe you start off with a little bit of care, but we don't have a crystal ball. And a few years later, you're in a wheelchair or you need escorts to different parts of the building. We can provide all that for you. And then we have the residents who have memory loss to the point where maybe the assisted living side of our communities are no longer appropriate. So each one of our Bristol communities has a neighborhood called Reflections, which I like to describe as a smaller community within the community. It's a smaller, more structured, more supportive environment where staff are specifically trained in dementia care, how to communicate with residents, how to provide personal care for folks with dementia, how to engage them in activities to make the activities purposeful and meaningful and successful. And so everything that we do, like I said, even the design of the building, in many of our newer communities, the memory neighborhoods, Reflections, are actually designed circular. So for folks who want to have that sense of independence, even though they might have memory loss, they can walk with no blank hallways, no dead hallways. They're just, it's a circular space so that they can have freedom to move around and we don't have to worry about them, exiting the unit. It's a secured area. So we have those folks that are independent, that just sort of choose to move for lifestyle reasons. We have folks who move to our communities because they need a little bit of extra help with activities of daily living. And then we have folks with memory loss that move to our communities because they need a safer, more structured environment.
Julie, I think that the common misconception is that people, hear assisted living, they're not quite sure, and you're doing a great job, obviously, of explaining what the difference is between that and a nursing home kind of situation, where does that line, get drawn?
Very good question. So some of it obviously has to do with payer source, right? And we have to think about a nursing home. It's basically a medical facility. It's a place where you go when you need 24-hour nursing supervision. So it typically is a little bit more of an institutional setting. And even nursing homes have come a long way in the last number of decades, but they still are medical facilities. That's where their focus is. Assisted living is not that. Think of assisted living as a luxury hotel. So for folks who don't necessarily have the need for 24-hour nursing supervision, but it's like living in an apartment building where the support is there if you need it. So a lot of the challenges that people face when they're living at home, some of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago, like preparing meals, like housekeeping, like laundry, like social isolation, getting to doctors, all those things are really solved by moving to an assisted living community. It's an apartment building with services. That's how I like to think about it.
So what if someone, as we get older, we get much more frail and requires a lot more help? Is there a point where you kind of, I don't want to say age out, because it's not aging out, but because of health issues,
Yeah, you need to like transition some.
right,
yeah.
you're not appropriate for the Bristol or an assisted living facility. What determines that, and what's that transition like?
So that's a really good question. And that's something that families certainly should ask when they're visiting assisted living communities to try to find the right community for them. Most of the Bristol communities have what's called the Enhanced Assisted Living license. And what that license is really designed to do is to enable people to age in place, right? To come in maybe a little bit more independent, and over time, if their care needs increase. So if they need a wheelchair, if they need oxygen management, right, if they need medication management, pureed diets, even the use of a Hoyer lift, that we're able to provide that level of care for them as they age. Now, that's always our goal. And our goal is always for folks to be able to stay at the Bristol. It becomes their home. The staff become like family. They have friends. We want them to be able to stay in the environment that they're comfortable in. But sometimes the time does come where that really is the level of care. A nursing home is the level of care that somebody needs. So we work with families to ensure a smooth and healthy transition. We have relationships with many of the skilled nursing facilities to ensure that if somebody does need to move to a nursing home for whatever reason, and sometimes it does have to do with finances, because people outlive their finances and can no longer stay at the Bristol, which is generally private pay, we ensure a smooth transition. So our goal is to keep you as long as we can, to be able to provide those enhanced levels of care that decades ago assisted livings could not do, and now they can, because I think the state is really trying to keep people out of nursing homes. Just because you need oxygen, or just because you're in a wheelchair, or just because you have mobility issues shouldn't be a reason to go to a nursing home, right? You need a nursing home because you require the 24-hour supervision of a skilled nurse. Although we do have nurses in our buildings, but the focus more is on lifestyle, on staying healthy, on wellness, on activities, on socialization. We can provide a pretty high level of personal care if you need it. But sometimes the time does come where you may have to move to a skilled nursing facility.
So you had kind of brought up costs. So I'm like, let's kind of elaborate, what are the costs involved? And if it's private pay, I'm sure there's people that aren't able to move to the Bristol, but there's other assisted living facilities that, are out there. So I'm curious, what are the costs involved? And a lot of times, you hear things like, oh, I had to sell this, I had to give up that, I had to do that, I lost all my stuff. So, you hear a lot of things that seniors are nervous about, so it'd be interesting to hear, about that process.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And certainly, reaching out to maybe a trusted advisor, like an elder law attorney or a financial planner, might be a good idea as you start planning for your long-term care needs. So what is the cost at the Bristol? People sometimes hear the Bristol. We're a Long Island brand. We're a company that was born on Long Island 21 years ago. And I think we've become synonymous with luxury senior living on Long Island. Our owners live here, our operators live here. We are obviously vested in the success of Long Island and the lifestyle of our older adults that we love so much. So what does it cost to live at the Bristol? So sometimes people hear the Bristol or they hear assisted living and automatically they think, oh, I can't afford that, right? Because they heard, oh my gosh, it's $11,000 a month, or it's $15,000 a month, or they think they can't afford to live there. We have Bristol apartments at some of our communities that start at around $3,600 a month. That rate includes 3 meals a day, your housekeeping, your laundry, your recreational activities and your opportunities for social engagement, 24 hours, somebody at that front desk. And then if you need any kind of personal care, the rate increases depending on how much care you need. Now you might think, oh my gosh, $3,600 for rent. But when you start thinking about all those things that you're getting your food, you're getting your pendant, so that if you press your pendant 24 hours a day, somebody will come up and check on you within minutes. So people, for the most part at the Bristol, pay privately, whether they have, Social Security and a pension and savings, and you're not turning anything over to us. We're giving you a bill every month, and you are paying that bill just like you would pay your rent for an apartment. There's no long-term commitment. You can give us 30 days notice and move out if your family situation changes or your situation changes. There's no lease that you're breaking. You can move out at any time. So rates, like I said, starting at around $3,600, depending on the Bristol community. And on Long Island here, including here in the town of North Hempstead, there are 15 communities.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I know it's hard to believe we've grown a lot in the last few years. And the rate varies depending on the community, right? Just like a house on Long Island is going to cost more in one neighborhood than the other. It's sort of similar. And also the size of your apartment, and also how much care you need. Now, the rate, like I said, starting at that point, all the way on up to one of our maybe secured memory neighborhoods. So if you need a very high level of care, you need a secured memory neighborhood, we do have communities with an all-inclusive rate of about $11,000 a month, but that includes medication management, a secured neighborhood, 24-hour supervision, full assistance with activities of daily living, reminders, meals, prompting. So for somebody with significant memory loss who needs that, when you start adding up the cost of an aide who might live in your home, it's sometimes can be a cost savings, to live at an assisted living community. So everyone really has to weigh, what's going to be the best choice for them. Typically, when people move to the Bristol, they're selling the family home, right? The home that they purchased decades ago. So they're selling the house, and that helps them to afford the cost of living in one of our communities.
Okay, when someone does kind of like have want to be at like the advanced level where they require services for dementia, things like that, do you guys like bill through insurance? Is insurance ever involved? And maybe you can answer that when we come back, because we have to take a break. We'll continue with our guest, Julie Wexler from the Bristol, and we will be right back. You've been listening to 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu, who is a special host today, along with the radio show producer. We have been speaking with Julie Wexler from the Bristol, learning all things assisted living. So it's very, very informative. So I just was curious because you do take care of people who are in advanced stages of different levels of health. Would you utilize Medicare, or is there ever an option to use health insurance for the resident?
That is such a great question. And Rebecca, that's a question that people ask me all the time. So you have to think of Medicare as health insurance, right? So you're sick, you want to go to the doctor, or even if you have an illness, it'll pay for you, for your hospital stay. It'll even pay for a certain amount of time to get better from that illness, right? And that's why people go to short-term rehab, right? Mm-hmm. Where you get your 100 days and you get stronger and then you go home. We are not providing a medical service. And so therefore, Medicare is not going to cover the cost of assisted living, right? Because we're basically providing you with amenities. We're providing you with meals. We're providing you with activities, safety. And in terms of, assistance with activities of daily living, Medicare, because it was designed, back in the 1960s, does not cover what's called custodial care, which is personal care assistance like showering, dressing, grooming, toileting. Medicare is not designed to do that. So the answer is no. Assisted living does not accept, or Medicare will not pay for the cost of assisted living or your supplemental insurance. Having said that, there are some assisted living communities that participate in a program through the state called the Assisted Living Program, and it's actually a Medicaid funded program. Because think of your older adult, or think of an older adult who might be of advanced age, who maybe does, who is on the Medicaid program because they don't have money, right? So they're financially eligible, and they need help with, they can't live on their own. They need help with showering, with dressing. They're lonely. There's no place for them to live that's safe for them. But they're not eligible. They shouldn't be in a nursing home because they don't belong in a nursing home. They don't have any medical needs that require them to be in the nursing home. So there is a program under the Medicaid program called ALP that has a limited number of beds throughout New York State that provides assisted living. The Bristol, just a year ago, started participating in that program. At 2 of our communities now in Lynbrook, and we're ramping up in Westbury. We have a limited number of beds that are paid for through the Medicaid system. It really is intended for our current residents to be able to stay in our community as they age, right? Because we have, the average stay in assisted living, even nationally and in our communities as well, is 2.5 to 3 years, right? So maybe people are fortunate enough to have a pension and have their savings and have their house to sell, and they can come and live a beautiful life at our communities. But sometimes, eventually the money does run out. And what is their option? Their option might be either to go home and live with your children, which might not be viable or a good idea or safe, or go to a nursing home where you don't really belong. So with this limited number of beds, people are able to stay at the Bristol. So right now, the Bristol at Lynbrook and the Bristol at Westbury, which is ramping up, have a limited number of beds for residents to be able to stay in our communities as they sort of what's called spend down their assets. So in terms of insurance, that would really be it, in terms of Medicaid. But the other type of insurance that does pay for the cost of assisted living is long-term care insurance. Now, of course, long-term care insurance, if you're in your 40s and 50s, now is your time to, purchase a long-term care insurance policy. The seniors that we work with that move to our communities who are in their 80s or 90s and they purchased policies decades ago, they're typically pretty generous policies. We have to take a look at it. Not all long-term care insurance does pay for the cost of assisted living, but many of them do, if not most. And so we have to see how the policy is written to see that it pays for the cost of assisted living. And if it does, every policy is different. You might have a $150 benefit per day. You might have a $300 benefit per day. You might have a time limit on it of 3 years. You might have a lifetime policy that they'll just pay forever. But typically with long-term care insurance, the way that the policy kicks in, when the policy kicks in is when you have a dementia diagnosis. So if you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia or something like that, the policy will kick in. Or if you require assistance, most of them are 2 activities of daily living. Sometimes I've seen 3 activities of daily living. So as soon as you require, showering assistance or dressing assistance, toileting assistance, feeding assistance, then the long-term care insurance policy will kick in. What happens with folks in our communities who have these long-term care insurance policies, you still have to pay your bill, but then you submit for reimbursement through the company. So your relationship with your carrier is really your relationship with the carrier. So you have to pay us, but then you can get typically reimbursed.
So you said that the average time span that someone lives in the Bristol is 2.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Or assisted living, not just the Bristol.
Yeah.
So, if someone comes in relatively healthy and just needs the, kind of general plan, like you were saying, is it that they would move on and just go somewhere else, or
well, that's the average stay. So we have folks, unfortunately, that come to our community. Sometimes they may have waited a little too long, and they move to our communities, and maybe they're only there for 6 months, right?
Right.
But the last 6 months, they were safe. They were around friends. They were eating great food. They were benefiting from all the great stuff that we have. And then listen, we have folks who live in our communities sometimes 10 years, right? We don't have a crystal ball, but we have a woman who I believe she just celebrated her 108th birthday.
Wow.
At the Bristol in North Woodmere. So we have many residents who live long, healthy, full lives at our communities. So like I said, we don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
We don't do a financial check to determine if somebody could afford to live in our communities. We tell you, this is what it costs. This is what it's costing you now based on your care needs. This is what it might cost in the future if your care needs increase. And it really is up to families to determine if this is going to be a good, fit for you, and financially a good fit for you too. So, you have to remember that the generation that's living now, just think about it. There's never been a generation that has lived as long as they are living now in the history of humankind. We are living longer than we ever have in the history of humanity. We're the pioneers, right? So every family is making decisions based on lots of different factors, financial factors, religious factors, socioeconomic, personal preferences, family dynamics. There's a lot of factors that go into families making decisions for care. So my goal is to really try to educate families so that they know what their options are. Once again, communities like the Bristol didn't exist 20 years ago. So, it's very typical for me to hear, from families and like, oh, my mother, she, we promised dad we would never put mom in one of those places, one of those places. But one of those places really didn't exist 20 years ago when maybe they were making their care decisions for their aging parents, right? The industry has changed so much. The bar has been raised so much. And that's one thing that the Bristol is really good at, is sort of understanding what Long Islanders like and the lifestyle of Long Islanders and what their expectations are and their lifestyle choices. So my suggestion to families is just at least just come take a look, right? Once again, there's some misinformation about the affordability factor, right? Who knew that you could live in a Bristol under Medicaid, right? Or maybe mom is really looking for that luxury environment. We have that as well. And so I at least just go and it's okay for you to go without mom, right? And I tell people to, and I'm speaking to maybe the adult children, right? That if you're thinking about assisted living, it's okay just to stop in and take a tour. We'd like you to call first and schedule a tour, but if you want to just stop in and just take a look at what it is, because I think you're going to be surprised. People often think it looks like an old age home. It looks institutional, and there's old ladies sitting around in wheelchairs with knitted blankets on their legs. It is not like that. You walk into
Julie, what is the youngest age that someone could move into the Bristol?
Yeah. So, we have residents that are sometimes in their 60s, and those are typically folks that have early onset dementia, right? Mm-hmm. So, because most people, if they're in their 60s, maybe they're living in a 55 and over, or maybe they're still living in their house, and maybe living in a community with 80 and 90-year-olds might not be an appropriate fit. Listen, you want to move in, you're 65 and you want to move in, we're happy to have you. But most of the time when people move in that age group, it's usually because they have significant health issues and they need the supervision and support, or because there's early onset dementia. So I always suggest to families just to go in and take a look, and you'll be surprised. There's no obligation. We love to have people come in and take a look at our communities. We love to show it off. Very often our residents are more than happy to, speak to you and let you know what it's like living in our communities as well. And remember, and you're not being sneaky. You're just educating yourself, because maybe you've never been inside a community before, and you might be surprised what you see. So that is usually the first step that I suggest to families. At least just make the phone call and educate yourself on what the options are, because you might be surprised, and you might be surprised at the affordability as well.
So if you run out of money, say like you were pointing out, we are pioneers, all of us, I mean, in, our field of services for seniors. No one, this lady in North Woodmere did not plan to live to 108. I could tell you that. And I don't have ESP, but I just know, especially that generation, we were told a man would live to 72 and a woman would live to 76. And, so we base our retirement on that. No. And then, what happens? 76 becomes the new 56 and people are living in their 90s. When I was a kid, it was rare that someone we heard someone in their 90s. It was like, wow, now,
right now it's like the
driving.
norm. I mean, a Project Independence, the amount, we see it all the time, and we're like shocked sometimes, like, oh my God, they're in their 90s already, and it's something that's definitely become more of a commonplace.
Right. So exactly. So like someone who comes in, they're in their 80s, they need a little bit of assistance. Cognitively, they're in great condition. And, they're going well into their 90s. I just don't know how in this scenario. So what happens? You've got, and sometimes they're couples. I mean, we have so many couples that are, enter their 90s and living together, and they're home, and slowly but surely, they're not driving anymore and those kinds of things. And they're still at home. So, now they're 90s and they're figuring out what to do, which is also not ideal. You want to definitely have a plan, but do we plan to live so late? There's so many things that come into play. So you've got this lovely resident who, came to you in, their early 80s, needed a little bit of assistance. And, and they're going beyond their means because they're living so long. You guys are doing such a good job and they're having fun, and they're hanging on. And it's like 10, 15 years. And, I don't have the kind of money to sustain, at the Bristol. So what happens?
Yeah. So 10 or 15 years would be a long time
right.
at our communities. So, I mean, there's, different scenarios. So, we always encourage families, you have to be open with us because we are there to help you and support you and to help your family find what the next right level of care would be. So firstly, perhaps we can go into a smaller apartment. That would be a cost savings, right? So maybe a family's starting to get a little nervous about finances. So you always have the option to scale down. When people move to our communities, very often I hear, oh, mom's coming from a 4-bedroom house and she can't move into a 1-bedroom or you have to remember, this is not a real estate transaction. People are not moving to the Bristol because they're going from one house to another. They're moving to the Bristol because something has happened and they need the help. They need the support. So you can't think of it as, in real estate, you think of, getting the biggest bang for your buck. That's not why you're moving to the Bristol. You're moving to the Bristol because of the meals, the housekeeping, the supervision, the activities. Those are the reasons why. So the apartment really becomes secondary. And people sometimes, I get it. Moms are hard, right? Mom is like refusing to move unless she gets a 2-bedroom apartment. So maybe when she first moved in, that's what you needed to do in order to convince her to move. But now she's been been living at the Bristol for a year or so. Mm-hmm. And you know what? She's not spending very much time in that apartment. Why? Because she's eating her meals in the dining room. She's going to the 7:00 movie every night. She's going on the trips. She's playing Mahjong every Thursday at 3:00. She's not really spending too much time in the apartment. So maybe we can scale down. Maybe we can go into a smaller apartment. That might be sort of like the first thing that we do. The other thing that we can do is sort of plan for her maybe going to one of our communities that accepts Medicaid. So if we really are starting to get nervous and we're thinking, geez, mom's going to probably run out of money in the next year or so, well, we can maybe transfer her to one of our Bristol communities. And that's sort of the beauty of us having that program now at Lynbrook and Westbury.
Julie, I'm sorry, but we have to take a quick break. We're going to continue with Julie Wexler from talking about assisted living You're listening to Project Independence in You here at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be right back.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
Welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu. We've been speaking with Julie Wexler from the Bristol, all about assisted living. And, we're asking lots of questions and, about money and finances. And I'm sure that when someone comes in, you go over everything. You're not asking how much do you have, but rather you give scenarios. I'm sure, like someone says, there's a possibility, people are going to live a lot longer. So just make sure you either have enough or a plan, so it's good. It's really very good information. And I'm curious, I know Kristina is too, when someone moves into assisted living, specifically the Bristol, do they have a kitchen?
So in our communities in the assisted living, it's really a kitchenette. Remember, we are cooking 3 gourmet meals for you a day.
Right.
A menu of choices to choose from. You even get a glass of wine with dinner.
Oh.
So our seniors get very used to eating their meals in the dining room. So you have a kitchenette. It's a little sink, a small refrigerator, a microwave, and some counter space. You could always make yourself some refreshments and a cup of coffee, or maybe you want to have your own breakfast in your apartment. That's perfectly fine. But no kitchens, no full kitchens, no stoves in our communities.
Okay. So if they want to eat, just say they're used to eating breakfast, they don't want to come down. Do you guys bring breakfast up to them?
So we don't do room service unless you're ill. And you have to remember that we are licensed by the New York State Department of Health, so there are certain requirements. And really that meal time is very important, especially at Bristol. The social, their structure, you need to be dressed.
Right.
You do need to come to at least 2 of the 3 meals a day. And if you're not coming down, that's perfectly fine. You're not feeling well, you could always call the front desk and say, listen, I'm not coming down for lunch today. But if you don't show up for a meal, we are looking for you and making sure that you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the meal does really provide an anchor and structure. And sometimes people say to me, oh, mom's not that social. She's never going to do any of the activities that you offer. And I say, mom's going to come to 3 activities every day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? We all need to eat. And people get they like it. They make a friend, and that friend is expecting them, at mealtime, or and the food is good. So they get very used to having that and getting that little extra attention and pampering.
And Julie, I know you had mentioned before about, couples moving in. So how does that work? They, is that a common thing, or is it usually just a solo person kind of moving in?
It's pretty common. We do have couples that move in together, and that's perfectly fine. We find them a 1-bedroom or even a 2-bedroom apartment. Sometimes they like to have their own bathroom. So usually our 2-bedroom apartments also have that second bathroom. But yeah, we definitely do have couples that move in. And so that's perfectly fine. And sometimes it's usually because one spouse maybe needs a little bit more care than the other. And so it enables them to stay together, for the spouse that needs the care to get the care that they need, and for the independent spouse to continue to be independent and not have to worry about sort of the day-to-day challenges like grocery shopping and laundry and those kinds of things, so that they can be more independent and live a great life as well.
And for like a 2-bedroom situation, let's say like 2 friends, they're not married, they just want to move in together. Is that something that is a thing, like that's possible?
It definitely is possible. You have a buddy. We've actually had sisters that have shared the 2-bedroom apartments together. So yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious about other things like visitors or going on vacation, things that you would just do and not think about.
Mm-hmm.
How is that, like, do people need to limit that, or are there rules?
It's not jail. You are free to come and go as often as you like. We have residents who have cars. we do ask that you sign out of the building. We want to make sure that you're safe and that you come back, and that we're on the lookout for you. If you don't show up for a meal, we're going to wonder why. So we definitely do request that the residents sign in and out of the building. You can visit family. You can go on vacation. We're fortunate, now to kind of past the COVID crisis. We certainly did have restrictions. We actually were under the same regulations as nursing homes during the height of the pandemic in terms of no visitation and residents not being, permitted to leave without having to quarantine when they came back. But now that the vast majority of our residents and all of our staff are vaccinated, we're certainly kind of going into a new era. Families can come and visit. There's a screening tool that we use to make sure nobody's got symptoms of COVID or have been exposed and coming into our buildings. You must wear a mask anywhere in any of the common areas in our communities. Those are all regulations by the New York State Department of Health. But right now we're in a spot where you can come and go and your families can come and visit. And
is that really, like during a visiting hour kind of window, or you're just like at whatever?
Anytime.
Could someone have a guest, like if a grandchild wants to stay over for the weekend?
They could. We don't encourage it, but certainly if it was just 1 or 2 nights, that would be okay.
Right. Okay. Very, very interesting, to learn about that. And it's good to know. It's good to know. And it's also good to know that the Bristol has 2 locations in North Hempstead?
So we have 2 communities. We have the Bristol at North Hills, which is on the south side of the Long Island Expressway, just east of New Hyde Park Road. It's actually one of our older communities, but has undergone major renovations in the last few years. So it's still beautifully maintained and a beautiful community. That's the Bristol at North Hills. And we have assisted living there, as well as a secured memory neighborhood called Reflections, like we talked about before. And then 4 years ago, we opened up the Bristol at Lake Success. So you might have noticed that building. It's on the north side, or the westbound side of the Long Island Expressway, just west of Community Drive. And that building is unique in that it is a fully secured memory care only community. So that is think about it as it's all Reflections. It's all secured. It's ultra luxury. So for somebody who needs memory care, it is really, the families are looking for a luxury environment. We certainly do have some things there that we don't have at some of our other communities, which includes a technology that we call Foresight, which is a fall prevention and health monitoring system, really remarkable, where while the resident is sleeping, there's an under the mattress sensor, which continually monitors their respiration, their heart rate, their activity, their bed exits. And it gives us a lot of really good information. Doesn't replace the staff, but it gives the staff really good information, because things like heart rate and respiration can really be an indication of a serious health problem, especially if it's even subtle changes over time. And so this system really kind of gives us information. We've caught urinary tract infections and other things even before the resident started showing any symptoms. So we really have had tremendous success with it. There's also a sensor that monitors the gait of the resident, which can also be an indication of declining health status. So especially for folks with memory loss or cognitive decline who can't really express to us verbally how they're feeling, how they're functioning, this gives us other information that they can't tell us otherwise. So if they're in pain, maybe they're getting up every hour. So maybe that's a change from maybe 3 months ago. Like this person used to sleep through the night. Now they're getting up 3 times a day. We have that information now, and we can say, hey, what's going on with this resident? So we've had such tremendous success with it, and have really, we hope, improve the health outcomes of our residents and even prevented emergency room visits because of it.
Wow. What's a day like for a resident who lives in that facility? What happens during the day?
At the Bristol at Lake Success in particular, and just like all of our memory neighborhoods. So the staff will go and do a wake-up call. make sure that the resident is awake at a certain time, and we'll help the resident get dressed. We provide full hands-on assistance. We help them select clothing. We help them get dressed. Then we have breakfast, right? And then, and it's in a congregate setting. So you're meeting up with your friends and we're playing music. We've got maybe the morning shows on. And then we have, after breakfast, there's exercise. We have chair yoga, chair tai chi.
Excellent.
We have just all kinds of fun exercise classes. So typically everything that we do in Reflections, we do together as a group. And, we bring everyone to, different parts of the building so that they can benefit from all the beautiful spaces that we have. And throughout the day, there might be discussion groups, there might be crafts, there might be games, there might be entertainment. So really anything that you would expect to see in regular assisted living, you're seeing in Reflections as well, just a little bit more support and a little bit more enhancement. So, we serve lunch, and then we have more activities, and then we serve dinner, and then we start getting everybody ready for bed. So the same kinds of things and support that you would expect in any Bristol, you're going to get in the Bristol at Lake Success as well, just with specially trained staff and
Right.
modifications to how we do things. And just to give you an example, I mentioned before how beautiful our menu is, right? We have lots of choices. Every day the menu changes. But if you give a menu to somebody with dementia, they can't
Right.
choose from a menu. They might not be able to read anymore. They don't understand. And just think of how frustrating they would be if we were like, okay, what do you want to order? We don't do that, right? But we still want to maintain dignity. We still want to maintain choices for them. Do you want the chicken or the fish?
Right.
So we're still letting them choose. We've just modified how we're doing it. And those are the kind of the subtle things and the differences of how we do things in memory care and how they're different, where we still maintain dignity, we still maintain choice for the resident, but we make it a little simpler for them.
And I just want to, I know we have a bazillion questions and we're rapidly approaching the end of this, but you had mentioned someone selling their house and moving into there. So let's say they have a treasured piece of furniture or, some kind of antique, how does that work? What are they allowed to bring with them to Bristol? And can they bring their pet to Bristol? A lot of them have some kind of pet. How does all this work?
So we can provide a very simple bedroom set for you. If you want to use it, you can use some of it, all of it, none of it. It's really up to you. And very often people are selling their home, or they want to bring their bedroom set, or they want to bring their beautiful sofa or their curio cabinet or their desk and their computer, whatever you want to bring. It's your apartment. You can decorate it however you like. If you want to use our furniture and then you change your mind or you're getting a new bed delivered, we'll just take our bed out. Just let us know when it's going to happen. We'll take care of it for you. So absolutely, you can bring anything from home. We encourage you to decorate, bring artwork. We've had residents bring their pianos, whatever is going to really make it feel like home for you. Can you bring your pet? Yes, as long as he's under 20 or she's under 20 pounds, and as long as the resident can completely care for the pet on their own. So small cats, small dogs. I even had a resident who had a cockatiel. So yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay, good. And then with transportation, I know you were saying that there's transportation available, but let's say I wake up and I want to go to, if I was a resident, I'd want to go to TJ Maxx or something, right? So how does that work if they just wake up one day and say they want to go to a store or a restaurant, whatever it might be?
We don't provide on-demand transportation,
okay,
but we do have regularly scheduled trips, and we go to places where the residents want to go. So TJ Maxx, is on the schedule. So maybe, later in the month, it's on the schedule. So TJ Maxx, Macy's, the bank is a regularly scheduled trip. Even the grocery store, the dollar store.
Mm-hmm.
We go to church on Sunday. We have trips to synagogue. So those are that's the transportation that we do provide. Okay. If you just wake up one day and want to go to TJ Maxx, that's not available. But, you can call it Uber, or we can hook you up with maybe, somebody who provides, senior transportation. Mm-hmm. That's perfectly fine. So yeah, there's definitely are some limitations, but it's, for transportation, but it's regularly scheduled trips.
Yeah, that's great. They have regularly scheduled trips.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, so many, like Kristina was saying, so many questions. And do you have grounds where people can walk outside? And do you have do you have a gym? Is there things like that?
Yeah, so depending on the building, all of our communities have outdoor space. Many of our communities even have swimming pools. The Bristol at North Hills does have a swimming pool and a beautiful backyard space. And also what happens is the memory care neighborhood usually has its own secured outdoor space, which is for folks with memory loss, they still have the opportunity to go outside and we don't have to worry about them, of course, wandering away. The Bristol at Lake Success also has a number of outdoor courtyards that are fully secured. Outdoors is just good for everyone, right? And we know that even more so now in this era. But we always encourage our residents that we like to do activities outside. Everyone needs fresh air every day. So we certainly do have beautiful outdoor spaces, and residents are, in some of our communities, they're in neighborhoods. So you can go for a walk in the neighborhood if you'd like, that's perfectly fine as long as it's, safe for you to do that. So yeah, we have, you were asking me about a gym. Every building has a fitness center with equipment in it. Residents can use that equipment anytime they like. You can go down and go on the treadmill, go on the stepper, use the free weights. That's perfectly fine for you to do that. Sometimes our residents are getting physical therapy from under their Medicare. So we have physical therapists that are in our communities several days a week.
Oh, I like that.
So if you're getting physical therapy, you can do that right on site. We always do a fall assessment when our residents move in with the physical therapist, because it's part of our fall prevention program to make sure that you're as strong as you need to be when you move to our community. So we do an assessment, or the physical therapist will do an assessment. And if he or she feels that you could benefit from some physical therapy, they will, set it up with your doctor to get approval for you to get the sessions that you're really entitled to under your Medicare. So that's really part of our fall prevention program, especially during a transition, right? The space is new, you're a little nervous, falls can happen, and seniors fall, right? We do everything we can to prevent falls. And that's one of the things that we do to prevent falls, is to make sure that you get that physical therapy assessment and to get the physical therapy that you need to be as strong as you can be.
On Long Island, everywhere, pretty much, has so many housing issues for seniors, affordable housing, or even just availability of housing, even at the Bristol. I'm wondering what specifically in North Hempstead, but what the turnaround time is. Do you have times where you're full? Is our wait list?
Yeah, we definitely do have times when we are full. There is a huge explosion or huge growth in our industry right now. So there's lots of new communities, not only the Bristols that are opening up. And sometimes there, might be a waiting list depending on the size apartment that you want, or maybe, sometimes people are like, oh, I only want one with a view, or I want to be next to the elevator and that kind of thing. So my suggestion to you is, and every building is going to be a little bit different. So my suggestion is, go and call us and maybe schedule a time to come in and take a look and see.
And Julie, what's the best phone number, for someone to call? Is there like a general number for all Bristols, or they call the individual ones? Or
so definitely to call the individual Bristol. They all kind of operate. We're all part of the same company, all managed by the same company. But in terms of, learning about the individual community, certainly calling that building, if you want to tour that building, is the best thing to do. But I'm going to give you my personal cell, because I am always happy to help guide you in any way that I can. I also know that the Bristol's not for everyone for a number of different reasons, but I've actually been working in senior services since 1993. I know a lot of people on Long Island. If I can't help you, chances are I know somebody who can, and I'm always happy to make a referral and send you in another direction if the Bristol's not the right fit for you. So use me as a resource. My personal cell is 631-926-8864. That's 631-926-8864. You can also email me at the letter J for Julie. My last name is Wexler, Wexler, at thebristol.com. So you're always welcome to shoot me an email. Always happy to talk to you.
Perfect.
Great information. Thank you so much for all. And I know I don't want to end this on a downer note, but, and you did bring us up to date about COVID, but, we're always interested. on what people learned during COVID too, because there's a lot that we had to learn. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that the Bristol changed that because of COVID to kind of, do a little bit better for their residents.
Yeah, this is a different era. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. So the only thing that we can do is pay attention to New York State Department of Health guidelines and regulations, and do everything that we can to keep seniors as safe as we can. So all of our residents, we actually had booster clinics in all of our communities. So our residents have gotten the booster. All of our staff are vaccinated. You must wear a mask in our communities. Some things have changed. The dining procedures have changed a little bit. 2 people to a table instead of 4, fewer people in the dining room. We socially distance now during activities. So there certainly are things that have changed as a result of the virus, but for the most part, our communities are, operating normally. We have had some breakthrough cases.
Julie, I hate to interrupt you, so I'm so sorry, but we are coming to the end of this segment. Thank you so much for this information. I'm sure we'll have you back. Kristina will, book you. Again, thank you for all this great information. You're listening to Project Independence and You at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.